for what we can expect for the next couple of days and then heading on into the weekend as well. I'm going to try and make this relatively brief, but again, wanted to pop in and do this. So if you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute to make sure I've got everything working here behind the scenes, as well as the audio, which is still a concern in the back of my mind with some of the issues we were having the last couple of weeks. But hopefully that's not an issue. We'll find out here in just a few moments. So like I said, if you give me about a minute, we'll get everything started. But I will show you those current conditions across western Montana. Overall, we are pretty quiet this evening. All right, I hope everybody's having a good evening. Overall, we've been in this pretty consistent weather pattern for the last little bit. So overall, nothing too exciting from the weather. The biggest change is going to be some colder air that's already starting to move in across the region. We're going to see more, I'll say more impacts from that, or at least more visible influences of that colder air getting ready to move in to the region. But we're not going to see the greater impacts as compared to other places further off to the east into the eastern half of the state. But still, going to see some at least clipping type of impacts from it. And we'll go into those here again momentarily. I think I've got everything working here behind the scenes. Got that. The audio is working good. So I think with that, let's get started. I know we'll have more people slowly work their way in as we go throughout it. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask those in the chat section. I'll probably do another reminder of that here in just a little bit. But overall, we've been in this pretty stagnant weather pattern. Ridge of high pressure off to our west. We've had a trough of low pressure to our east, and we've been kind of just stuck in between the two here in western Montana. So the valley inversions have not really broken. We've been dealing with that, especially into our valleys north of Interstate 90, west of the divide, where we've been seeing the low clouds, some morning fog. That's been a persistent issue for the better part of the last almost 2 weeks at this point. And we're likely going to continue to see that with some little caveats here and there. So here's the three big things that we're tracking, at least in the short term. We've got breezy northeasterly winds that are going to be moving in tonight and continuing through Friday. Not expecting them to be overly strong, but they will be elevated, and that'll be important with below average temperatures expected through this weekend, some of which could be, with those overnight lows, down into the single digits above and below zero. But next week we will start to see some slow warming. There is potential for a few weak systems, nothing major as it looks like right now. And like I was mentioning before, we're just kind of stuck in between the ridge to our west. You can see that rough over here off the California, Oregon, Washington coast, and the trough of low pressure that's really draped across the north and northeastern portions of the United States. But we're getting just a little piece of that colder air, Canadian air, that's going to be moving in to our region for tonight, Friday, and into Saturday as well. And we're already starting to see at least the first indications of some of that colder air moving in. Right now we're at 15 in Dillon, 18 Bozeman, 23 Missoula, 22 in Kalispell. But the thing I want to point most attention to are the winds. We're seeing those upwards to around 23 miles per hour in Kalispell. Sustained winds of 12 and 18 for Bozeman and Dillon. We could see these increase just a little bit over the next couple of hours. So we could be talking gusts in that 20 to 30 mile per hour range. And essentially that is ushering in some of that colder air that's going to be sitting over the region as we head into tomorrow. That said, it isn't going to completely break out the inversions we've been contending with, so fog will continue to be a bit of an issue for our valleys west of the divide. That goes down for Friday and Saturday morning because of the influence of this northerly flow, helping to break up the inversions just a little bit, but likely by the time we get into Sunday and Monday, that the warmer air starts to move back in. That inversion may start to strengthen up once again, so that's something we'll be watching out for, especially as we get into Sunday and Monday. As temperatures warm, we see more of that valley fog and a little bit of low cloud cover. I think still for this whole period, though, low cloud cover up towards the Flathead and Mission valleys will continue. Same issue for places like the Jocko Valley that's been dealing with that as well. We'll have to see what happens in the Missoula and Bitterroot valleys, as well as further west over towards places like Thompson Falls, Trout Creek, and seeing if these inversions really stay in place. But you may be asking yourself the question, where is the the cold weather. Where is winter? We really have not seen that all that much for typical January standards for our region. And that's all off to the east. I was mentioning it before. That trough of low pressure continues to push further and further off to the east, but some bitter cold air is expected for parts of northeastern and eastern Montana as a whole. Air temperatures 10 to nearly 30 degrees below zero, wind chills 25 to 45 degrees below zero. So that's the type of air when you start getting those types of temperatures. Frostbite can occur within, really 5 to 10 minutes. You could be talking about hypothermia extremely quick if you're caught all out in it. And then on top of that, there is a little bit of a snow chance over here towards Billings, and then parts of Interstate 90 and 94 as it's going over towards Miles City and Glendive, where we could be talking a couple of inches of snow and a little bit of wind-blown snow as well. But for our part of the state, we are just getting that glancing blow. We're going to see overnight lows the next couple of nights falling down into the single digits and teens, and I should specify single digits above and below zero and teens, but what I'm going to most focus on is the wind chill factor that we're going to be looking at, because everybody's at least going to see some kind of impact from this. As we get into, say, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're looking at those single digits above and below zero, 1 below in Kalispell, 3 below Dillon, 8 below towards Bozeman, but you look over towards Havre, Glasgow, Miles City, we're talking those wind chills 30 below or colder over into that part of the state. So it might be a chilly morning tomorrow. It could be a whole lot worse. Same story for Cut Bank and Great Falls, Lewistown, and Billings. We're talking teens to nearly 20 degrees below zero. So just a little glancing blow from that. Temperatures warm up a little bit into tomorrow afternoon, but we're still talking teens in many areas for those highs. And then as we get into Friday night, those temperatures start to fall once again. Saturday morning, we're looking at, this is around 5 a.m., single digits for areas west of the Divide, looking at those below zero wind chills for Dillon, Bozeman, and West Yellowstone. Winds will be a little bit lighter into Saturday morning, so some of these may actually be closer to air temperatures. It wouldn't surprise me in more areas on Saturday morning that we see those actual air temperatures below zero as compared to what we will see overnight tonight and for Friday morning as well. Now, as for, again, overnight lows, single digits above and below zero are going to be very common the next 2 days. Afternoon highs, this is just looking at Missoula. We're talking 22 for that high on Friday, 24 on Saturday, about 5 to 10 degrees below average before we start to warm up Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, back above average for the early parts of next week. Bozeman, we're following a very similar trend, though we're even colder, looking at the high temperature tomorrow of 16, which is 15 degrees below average, only warming up to around 20 as we get into Saturday, and then we're back into the upper 30s Monday and Tuesday as that ridge of high pressure starts to build back in and starts to warm us up again. And this may be more of a consistent type of temperature as we get into the middle and latter parts of next week as well, talking upper 30s, lower 40s for Bozeman. So we're having this little bit of a colder snap. Again, I'll preface this with the fact that this is January. Temperatures like this aren't particularly out of the ordinary, but with how warm and how mild it has been, it's a little more of a shock to the system, I think, for most people than it would be in a normal, typical January across the state of Montana. So a little bit of weirdness there, but it's kind of what we're looking at and what we're dealing with right now. So cold temperatures the next 3 days. We start to warm back up. Back above average into the early and middle parts of next week. Like I was mentioning before, overnight lows are going to be quite chilly as we head into Friday morning. We're looking at 3 for that temperature. Friday night, Saturday morning, 1 below. Saturday night into Sunday morning, 3 once again. So it wouldn't surprise me if that temperature goes down just a little bit. We'll have to watch that. But again, wind chills are still going to make it feel just a little bit colder, and maybe closer to maybe 10 to 12 degrees below zero, at least with those wind chills, depending on how strong the winds are. Additionally, there is the chance for a few snow showers, not expecting too much in our area, but we have actually had a few light flurries up at TV Mountain, so these will primarily be higher elevation showers, but you can see a few flurries overnight tonight, can't be ruled out, partly to mostly cloudy skies overnight, and then we get into, I don't know if I've got this graphic going out far enough. Let me get this one over, and I'll show you what we can expect. Let me see if this one shows it a little better. Yeah, actually, it really doesn't. Give me just a moment, and I'll get this one pulled out. I was just going to show the snow from the next little system that moves further off to the east that we have the winter weather advisories over towards Billings for, and I have that on this graphic. Again, just looking at those cloudy skies into tomorrow, maybe some clearing up here in northwest and west central Montana by the afternoon. But watch as we go into Friday night, Saturday morning. You see those clouds increase once again. Here comes that little system that's going to bring at least some snowfall to areas from Cut Bank down to Great Falls, down towards Billings. That's more of the line or the zone that we're looking at for there. But as you can see, down towards Bozeman, there is the chance for a few light snow showers as we head into Saturday. I think it's more likely going to be in the higher elevations, but you see that kind of continues all day in that zone, again, from about say Browning back down to Helena, Bozeman, West Yellowstone, and maybe even a few showers in the higher elevations around the mining city. Not expecting much in the way of impact from any of these. Maybe just some light flurries, a few light snow showers. Bigger issues will be further off into southeastern Montana as we get a little bit more of a push, but this will be one thing we have to watch for. This is a little bit of a change in the new forecast models. Maybe up here along the divide up towards Marias Pass, down into the Sealy, Swan Valley, north of Butte, we could see a little bit more enhancement as we get into Saturday evening. Most of the models were pretty lacking in aggressiveness with this much moisture earlier, so that'll be one that I keep a close eye on for as we head into tomorrow. But in general, still not expecting major impacts from this by any means. Just some scattered snow showers here and there as we get into Friday and Saturday with that kind of northerly flow moving into the area. Most areas, I think we're talking less than an inch of accumulation, and for our valleys west of the divide, really not looking at any kind of impact from this at all. It isn't until Monday night, Tuesday, that we start to see at least the potential of another system that's going to impact more of the area. Again, the precipitation chance is very low, only around 10 to 20% at this time. But with that, because of snow levels and temperatures as they start to warm up, we're still going to have the cold pools in our valley like we've been dealing with for the last little bit with the inversions in place. But with snow levels rising upwards to around, say, 4,500 feet, that could result in some potentially light snow, but maybe even the potential for some light freezing rain for our valleys again Monday into Tuesday. Of all the models, there's only about 1 in 5 that are showing it. So right now, 20% chance of that happening at this time, but that could always increase, that could always decrease. That'll be something we watch for as we go throughout the weekend. But pretty much it does seem like we're more in a steady state type of pattern. Not a whole lot to talk about except for the potential of some pretty cold air moving in for the next couple of days, but even the worst of that is well to our east. We're going to see parts of southwest Montana, valleys along near the divide, I guess I should specify, where we could see those temperatures, overnight temperatures down closer to 0, maybe a little bit below 0, wind chills in the single digits and teens below 0. So best advice is certainly if you have to go out, layer up, cover your face and fingers, and really the biggest thing is just limit the exposure that you have outside and then get in as quickly as you can. But it's always a good idea to have those extra layers, especially if you're traveling, if you're heading out further off to the east or eastern portion of the state. And make sure to have plenty of blankets, things like that, just in case anything were to happen. You can stay warm and prepared for those very cold temperatures. But overall, for our travel here in western Montana, very little and very minimal impact from the next couple of days. I'm thinking forward, it doesn't seem like there's a big chance for like a major pattern shift by any means either. I know last week we were talking about that. We did get part of that pattern shift with the colder temperatures that are moving in, but really all of the storm systems that have moved through have been practically moisture starved. We've just been able to get a few light flurries, and that has been about it, and it's trending in that same direction through the rest of January as things are looking like right now. We kind of had a similar pattern in January last year. We got to the 31st, and then we had our first piece of a storm system move through. I know we had freezing rain here in Missoula on the 31st last year going into the 1st of February. And then after that, the entire forecast just completely flipped. We went from pretty mild, pretty dry, and then February we had multiple big storms for especially northwest and west central Montana, lesser impacts in southwest Montana, but still plenty of issue nonetheless. So even though we're pretty quiet right now, that doesn't mean that we're going to continue to be quiet when it comes to our weather. That could quickly change as we get into the early parts of February, but certainly stay with us and we'll have the latest information. But kind of just recapping, if you got any last minute questions, feel free to ask those. Tonight, Friday, breezy northeasterly winds helping to bring some of that Canadian air in. We're going to see those temperatures cooling down, and that's going to make those wind chills even colder tonight. Single digits above and below zero are going to be common for those wind chills. Could even see in southwest Montana a few wind chills below 10 degrees or 10 degrees below zero. But those below average temperatures, those are going to be sticking around through the weekend, likely through Sunday, but as we get into early next week, we're warming back above average. There is the potential for a few weak systems. Still plenty of question marks with those particular storms. Could be freezing rain, could be a little bit of snow, and even the potential maybe some light accumulations up in our mountain passes, but still a lot of unsurety with what the models are or what's going to really come through with some of the discrepancies in forecast modeling right now. So, like I said, that'll be something to keep a close eye on as we head into tomorrow, but especially as we go throughout this weekend. Me and Alex, our new meteorologist, Alex Lamont, will be watching that pretty closely, and we'll give you the latest latest weather updates with that. But I think with that, I'll start wrapping this up. If you have any photos or videos of the sunsets we've seen the last few days, the low clouds, anything you feel like you want to share, feel free to do that at nbcmontana.com/chime in. And then, of course, tune into our broadcasts live tonight at 10 o'clock. NBC Montana Today from 5 to 7 a.m. with Jason Hurst and Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll be right back here for our 5, 6, and 10 o'clock broadcasts to finish out your work week. Hope you all have a great Friday, have a safe Friday, and I hope you have a great weekend, as I likely won't be doing another one of these tomorrow unless something drastically changes. But with that, again, stay safe, have a wonderful weekend, and stay warm with some of these colder temperatures. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary for us here in Montana, but overall should be a pretty quiet weekend other than a few light snow showers along and east of the Divide. So thanks for tuning in, spending a little bit of your evening with me, and I'll see you all in the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs.